Hi, and thank you so much for joining me today for another process video. And today I really wanted to use the Simple Stories Simple Vintage Winter Woods collection. So I found this photo of us outside the Natural History Museum in London back in 2018. It was snowing just while we were queuing up to go in. So we took a quick selfie, and I thought the neutrals in this picture would be perfect to go with that collection. So first of all, I wanted to add some mixed media to my background, and I wanted to use the reverse stencil technique, which I haven't tried before. So I grabbed this circle stencil, which is a Tim Holtz stencil. You will have seen me using this previously. I love it. And I'm just going in with my Pinko de Mayo inklings to colour the background, to colour the back of the stencil, and then I'm going to stamp that onto my page. So I'm just spritzing that slightly with some water. It's the Shimmers paints actually, and that Shimmers is quite thick. So I just wanted to water it down so that it went nicely onto the card, and you can see there it's created like a stamp effect. So I want it to go right the way across the page, so just adding a little bit more to that stencil. And then I shall go in again. With hindsight, it probably would have been much easier to have just painted some of the paint onto that mat that I'm using and then dip the stencil into it. But I like to do things the hard way, so here we go. So just matching up those circles ever so slightly and then putting that down. And you saw before I used my brayer just to make sure that paint goes everywhere on the background. And look at that, isn't that fantastic? So if you like the look of a stencil and you don't want to use it as a stencil traditionally, you want the outline, then try this. It's great fun. So here I am, look, dipping into that paint and then stamping it on the background there. So just making sure that I've covered everything, because the photo is a 4x6 photo, so I want to make sure that I've got plenty of that in the background. And I don't like it being too blocky, so I'm just adding some splatters just to sort of mellow those edges, if you like. I know across the bottom I'm going to be adding some strips of paper, so I wasn't too worried about the bottom, but the top I wanted to make sure that it wasn't too blocky. So yep, that fits really nicely. So just moving that to one side to dry, and I'm going to map my photo on some white cardstock just to make it pop a little bit. And once this is on the white card, I will go in with some pattern papers to mat the photo onto as well. I'm just looking at the layout actually. I've realised that I haven't added the date, so I shall have to make sure that I write the date on this or I'll forget. I'd written it on the back of the photo and then I wrote it on a scrap of card and I still got to put it on. I think normally it's something I do after I've done my journaling, and I just didn't get round to it this time. So just trimming those edges. This is just an offcut. I think I'd cut something on the silhouette, and I keep all the scraps of card that I can use for matting things afterwards. So now here I am coming with those gorgeous papers from the Winter Woods collection from Simple Stories. I love the pinks and blues, well, turquoises in this collection. I'm focusing primarily on the pinks and the tan colour this time around, but I'm just creating a small mat to go on the back of the photo. And once I've cut this to size, I realise that I can use that second piece to add as an extra mat. I don't particularly love that paper with all the different vintage images on, but when you're using it as such a small mat like this, it just adds some colour to the background without you having to see what's actually on the paper. So I do like that. So coming in with my Tim Holtz Edge Distresser, just ever so lightly distressing the edges on these papers. I didn't bother distressing the card, the white card, but I am doing on the papers. These have a lovely vintage feel to them, so it's nice to add a bit of distressing. And if you've watched me before, you know that I do love to distress my papers. So just getting that stuck down. The other one I added on a slight wonk, and then this piece I'm adding straight. So it just creates a really nice matted effect on that photo. So now the background's dry, well, more or less, just dabbing up the extra pieces of water. It dries pretty quickly using this technique because you're not adding a lot of water to your page. So now I want to come in with this paper, and it already had a torn edge, so you will have seen me doing this before. I'm just making use of that torn edge rather than creating a new one. So just chopping a piece off and adding that underneath the photo. And at first I think I'm going to use this striped paper, but then I shy away from using the turquoises, so I don't end up using that. So I'm just going to create a scallop border, and this is the tan with white spots. So using a pot to draw around, I think, yeah, it's one of my shimmers paints. I'm just creating the scallops, and then I shall cut those out using my cutter bee scissors. First of all, just cutting a strip for ease so that I'm not having to manhandle a huge piece of paper, and then just cutting around. And this is one of my favourite techniques at the moment. It's a really easy way of getting loads of different sizes of scallops, just looking around and seeing what you have in the house. Could be a 10p piece, or any coin, anything circular. So now I want to do the same with this piece of paper, and this is the pink striped. You can see it on the right hand side on that branding strip. So I'm just drawing a guideline here so that I know where to put the bottom of the pot, and then again just doing some semicircles, and this time I'm using a different size circular pot to create those scallops, just so that the two borders, because they're going to be next to one another, have slightly different sizes, and I do like the way that looks. So again, just using my cutter bee scissors. They're the ones that I find easiest for small featured cutting. And then we have the two borders. So I just have a little play to decide exactly where I want the photo and where I want these borders to go. Trim a bit of, because I'm still not sure about that piece of paper, so I just trim a little bit off the edge to see if I like the look of that better. And whilst I do like the size of that, the way it goes from small to big, going down the page, I'm just not quite happy about the stripes and having that turquoise there, so I do pull that away. So now I've decided which way my scallops are going to go. I'm just going to choose a title. So this is from the chipboard, the 6x12 chipboard pieces, and it says Snowflake Kisses, and I thought that worked really nicely because you can see the snowflake in James's hair and things. And then I pulled out this chipboard piece, but I actually forgot about it. You'll see later on that snowflake, and then the small circle that says Making Memories, and I like the look of that. So this cozy is a Flair badge that we made at Hey Little Magpie that coordinates with this collection nicely. So that's going to make an appearance as well. I think the colour works beautifully with these papers, and it just says cozy because we're all cozied up together in our winter coats. We knew it was going to be a cold day when we got the train down that day. So now using my T-square ruler just to make sure that I get this piece straight and in place, and using my double-sided tape to glue that down. And then I'll come in with these scallops and do the same again with double-sided tape just along the edge of the first one, and then the second one I'll use wet glue just so that I can slide it under and manoeuvre it a little bit before it dries. That's the problem with using double-sided tape. It's you get one chance really, don't you? Once it's down, it's down. So just adding this top border first, and just roughing up the edges of that ever so slightly. I just like the look of that distressed edge without it being too distressed, so just using my nail creates a really nice distressed look. And once I've done that one, I shall come in with the other border, and as I say, I'm just going to use some wet glue to glue that down, and then I've got the chance to manoeuvre it around and make sure it's in the right place, and it just slides neatly under there. And then once again distressing all those edges with my nails just to create a little bit of texture. So now coming back in with all the other bits to decide what I want to do with them. And again, at the moment I've got that chipboard snowflake at the top left hand corner there, and it looks lovely there. I'm so annoyed with myself that I forgot. But I wanted to add some of my wax twine under the photo, so I'm using a small hole punch to punch 2 little holes at the ends of each of the scallop border, and then I'm going to thread the wax thread through those. But I'm also going to attach one of the silver charms that we've got at Hey Little Magpie. We sell little charm packs, and this is a snowflake charm, so it works really nicely with this layout. So I'm just attaching that to the thread, and then I shall push the ends through those holes that I've created, and just making sure that the snowflake's in the right position, and then attach the thread to the back with just a strip of double-sided tape. Any tape would do. That's just what I had to hand. So adding that through each of the holes. and getting that stuck down. And again, that snowflake's just adding another texture, a different dimension to the layout. So just making sure that I'm happy with the way that sits, and then I can come back in with my photo and things. So everything slipped under when I was moving the page around, so just retrieving things and working out exactly how they're going to go. So before I stick the photo down, I want to use one of my new All and Create stamps. This is one that Julie Taylor on our design team recommended. She said she uses it all the time, and it's a gorgeous background texture stamp. It reminds me so much of the 49er Market textures on their rub-ons. So just using the new Lost Shadow ink from Tim Holtz, just because that gives a really delicate stamp. You don't see an awful lot of it, but it does just add something extra to that background. And it's these subtle touches that I really enjoy on my pages. So just adding that to both sides and using a scrap piece of paper just so that it doesn't stamp where I don't want it to. Now coming back in with that photo. And now is the time that I can stick that down. So again, just using double-sided tape. Didn't want to add any extra dimension, so no foam pads today. So that goes more or less in the centre, ever so slightly to the left, and I've got those pencil marks that I added before so that I knew where that was going to go. So now I'm going to add this snowflake title, and I do have to add a little bit of foam underneath that just to make it stand proud. It's going to sit on top of this other chipboard piece as well that says Making Memories. And then I'm nestling that cosy Flair badge right next to it as well. So just adding some glue. The adhesive on this adhesive chipboard is never enough to keep them in place, so I always add a little bit more glue to that. So popping it down, and I'm pretty sure I did add some foam. Yes, I did add some foam. Just having to check there. And I felt that the foam pads that I've got would be they would raise it up a little bit too much. So I've actually just used some fun foam from a local art shop to stick that under. I'm going to add some thread under this Flair badge, but boy did I struggle with that. I tried the pink and it was just too pink because the colours are ever so subtle in these papers. So I tried the blue, and once again, just too blue. So then I find a pale pink linen thread that I've got, and it's a little bit stiffer. It's more towards like a wax thread thickness, but it worked really nicely and it was the perfect pink. So a bit like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, isn't it? So there we go, and you can see that's not as obvious and in your face, which is exactly what I wanted. So now I'm coming in with that foam and just adding that underneath the right hand side of that title, just to make sure that it stands equally on the page. So just checking where I wanted it to go, and then just adding a few bits to the end. And then I'll have to add some glue again to that to stick it down. There we go, just squeezing a bit underneath. That'll do. Now this little snowflake piece, this is a very pale blue and it works really nicely there. And that little cluster of 3. Then I decided to treat myself to some of the 49er Market Blossom tickets, because this pink works beautifully with this collection, and I suspect will with a lot of the summer collections coming up. So adding a strip of tickets there, and then one of my pre-stamped LE Studios label stamps there, and then another little ticket to the left-hand side as well. So just gluing those down with my wet glue while I decide what to do next. So I find a little chipboard heart and I just add that onto the Making Memories circle there. There's a lot of dimension going on in that corner. And now I'm adding my journaling, and I'm just using a pale grey pen and going around the outside of the photo. And then into the other stamp set that I've got from All and Create. These are all on the website now. And this is another circles set. and I love this. It's a border stamp, and I just wanted to add a little bit of stamping underneath that paper. So I'm starting off with spun sugar, a distress oxide, and it's quite a bright pink. I hadn't realised just how bright it was. It does work nicely with these papers if you're careful. So adding that on, and it's a little bit too bright for me. So coming in now with that Lost Shadow again, and adding a strip underneath, and that works so nicely with this. And just adding a little bit extra. I didn't feel there was quite enough. And then I wanted to oxidise those colours to try and take down the pink a little bit. So just sprinkling some water all over those, and I'll leave that for a little bit to activate. This is the point where I realised that that snowflake, I've done my journaling around the corner of the photo, so I can't now add that there. So I'm going to create a little cluster in the bottom right hand corner, and then a cluster in the top left hand corner, predominantly so that I can use that really. But I just felt that the layout needed a little bit of something else. So adding another one of those Ellie Studio pre-stamped labels and the chipboard, and I find a little ticket that says snow on the 12x12 sticker sheet that works nicely there, and one of those lovely tickets from the Blossom 49er Market Blossom collection. So just creating that little cluster down there, gluing everything down with my wet glue again. And I've just taken that ticket off the edge of the page, so I will trim that edge off after. And now having a look through the stickers to see what else I can find on that 12x12 sticker sheet. And this little one says bundle up. And again, just taking it off the top of the page and adding that to the top there, and then I'll find some other bits. So a little circle with a snowflake on, this gorgeous wooden heart. It's a sticker, but it's like a wood grain. And at first I think I'm going to use this sticker, but do in fact swap that out. Once I start going through the sticker book and see these teal stickers, I think, oh yes, they'll be much better. So I find one first of all that says Hello Snow, and add that to the top. And then I find another one that says Let it snow, let it slow, let it snow, and I add that underneath the photo just next to that title there. And that's bringing that turquoise right the way down the page from the top to the bottom. So nothing else that I could see straight away there. So I just wanted to add another little bit of torn paper underneath, just to cover up a little bit of that pink that was very, very pink. And also just to add a little bit more to that paper layer. Very pleased with how that looked. And then back to the sticker book, because I find a little banner. I just felt I needed something else up here, and there's a little banner that works really nicely there underneath that Hello Snow, and just finishes that cluster off nicely. And then I find these snowflakes, so I had a couple of those just to really to join those clusters to the main photo, top and bottom, and extend that big cluster on the right hand side of the photo as well. And then this one I add to the bottom left hand corner of the photo, and it says Snow Memories, and I really like that. And it just finishes that off nicely there. So I'm going to look through to see what else I can find. And then I find these little, they're like pre-made clusters if you like, and this one says Just a Little Chilly, and I thought that would work well. So adding that underneath that little torn paper there. And I wanted something on the left hand side of that because I felt it wasn't quite finished, so I just pulled off one of these hearts. Again, it's one of those lovely wood grain hearts. Finally, I'm going to come in with some sequins. I think this is finally, but it's not actually. So just adding a few blue and pink sequins. A very few. I didn't really want to add too many, but just scattering a few around. So keep adding and layering all the time, don't I? I think I'm done, and then add some more. So that's just finishing off gluing those down. And then I decide that I want something else. I feel that it's very white in the background with all that mixed media going on. So I'm just using my dauber, the blue dauber, and it's just what's left on it to go through that stencil. And I just love the effect that this gives. So I do it at the bottom of the page and then again at the top of the page. And it's very, very subtle. You can barely see it because, like I say, I haven't inked this at all. It's just what's left on the dauber from previous work. So at the bottom and also at the top. And you can see it's ever so subtle, but it just adds something to that layout that I was really, really happy with. And that is it now. Thank you so much for watching. Here are the close-ups, and I shall see you again on Sunday. Thanks again. Bye.